It happened on a Friday night that was never supposed to be anything more than drinks with old friends. My best friend Liza had come into town dragging along her boyfriend, and for some reason Matt, my ex from college, the one who never really left my head even when I swore he did. We all met at this pretentious little bar downtown. The kind with Edison bulbs and overpriced cocktails that taste like regret and rosemary. I wasn't supposed to drink that much. I wasn't supposed to laugh that hard at Matt's stupid jokes. I wasn't supposed to feel that old teenage flutter when he touched my wrist to check my bracelet. And I definitely wasn't supposed to kiss him behind the bar when Liza went to puke and her boyfriend tried to find her napkins. But I did all those things. And more. Matt got us an Uber back to his hotel because, of course, he was staying at the same boutique nightmare where all the city's mistakes check in for the night. I remember stumbling through the lobby, giggling like I was 20 again, thinking how harmless it all felt. Like I was borrowing someone else's life for a couple hours, someone reckless and selfish and free. It was clumsy and rushed, and I can't even tell you if I enjoyed it. Maybe I did. Maybe that's what makes me the worst kind of person. Not the act itself, but that tiny moment when my body betrayed my vows and I didn't hate it. Afterwards, I sat on the edge of his bed, pulling on my jeans, feeling like I'd cracked open my chest and poured acid right inside. Matt, the coward, tried to cuddle me. I pushed him away so hard I heard him grunt. I remember thinking I needed to shower, to scrub myself raw before I got home. But of course I didn't even get that far. When I got back to our house, my husband, David, was asleep on the couch. He'd fallen asleep waiting for me. He'd set out a glass of water and 2 Tylenol on the coffee table, like he always did when he knew I'd come home drunk. He even left a blanket for me. I stood there staring at him, wondering how the hell I'd become this monster. This cliché. I wish I could tell you I made a clean break, that I buried the secret deep in my chest and pretended it never happened. But I'm not that strong. Or maybe I'm just not that smart. Because from that moment on, the guilt grew teeth. It chewed at me while I folded laundry, while I cooked dinner, while I tried to touch him without flinching. It lasted 4 months. For months of waking up every day wondering if he could see it in my eyes. For months of Googling, should I tell my husband I cheated? Like some pathetic oracle would grant me mercy. In the end, I told him because I thought honesty would cleanse me. I thought stupidly that if I wept enough, if I showed him how sorry I was, he'd hold me while I broke apart. He always did before. I believed, really believed, that love could absorb betrayal if the heart behind it was pure enough. So one night I made him tea, sat him down at our kitchen table, told him to put his phone away. He looked so concerned, so ready to hear that maybe I was sick, or that someone had died. I almost wished it was that. Anything would have been better than what I had to say. I told him everything. I confessed about the drinks, the kiss, the hotel. I told him how sorry I was, how I hadn't seen Matt since, how it meant nothing, how I loved only him. Only David, always David. I'll never forget the sound he made. It wasn't a word, not really. Just this guttural broken noise that made me flinch. He didn't yell at first. He just stared at me like I was a ghost. Then he laughed. A single sharp bark of disbelief. Then he cried. And then he screamed. I stayed on my knees for most of it, clutching his hands until he ripped them away. I begged. I told him we could fix it. I told him we'd go to therapy, church, the moon if we had to. He didn't say anything back. Just left the house that night. Didn't come back for 2 days. When he finally did, he looked like he'd aged 10 years. He told me he wanted a divorce. No yelling this time. Just ice in his voice so calm it made me sick. He said he'd never look at me the same way again. That every time he'd touch me, he'd see Matt's hands instead. I tried to argue. I tried to remind him of everything we'd survived before. My father's death, his mother's cancer, the miscarriage. But betrayal is different. It's not a tragedy that happens to you. It's a choice someone makes to hurt you. And that's exactly what I did. I chose to hurt him. I wish I could say that's where the story ends. Divorce papers, a few sad boxes, and 2 people who go their separate ways. But no. My family found out. His family found out. And I learned too late that a single confession can set off a chain reaction you can't ever take back. I thought telling David would be the hardest part. I thought the worst of it was watching the man I loved more than my own pulse look at me like a stranger he wished he'd never met. But betrayal is funny like that. It's never content to stay quiet. It has a way of spilling out, infecting everyone who comes close, whether you want it to or not. After he told me he wanted a divorce, David moved into the guest bedroom for a while. We pretended for the kids, for the neighbors. We didn't have kids yet, thank God. Maybe that's the only mercy in this whole mess, but we did have his little niece and nephew staying with us every other weekend. His sister, Monica, worked night shifts, so we'd offer to help. I say we, but David did all of it. Bedtime stories, snack plates, making pillow forts in the living room. I tried, but my presence felt radioactive. The kids could sense it. Children are like dogs, they sniff out guilt before you even open your mouth. One night, about 2 weeks after my confession, I found David sitting in the dark, scrolling through his phone. I asked if he'd eaten. He ignored me. So I asked him if he'd please just tell me what he needed from me. He looked up, eyes rimmed red, and said, "I need you to stop acting like you didn't kill us." And then he told his sister. I don't blame him. Maybe I did at first. I remember screaming at him, asking how he could do that to me. But looking back, I see it now. When someone rips your heart out, you want the whole world to see the hole they left behind. Monica called me that night, didn't even let me get a word out. She told me I was filth. That she'd trusted me around her children, that she'd thought I was family. Then she hung up. She didn't drop the kids off again. She didn't answer when I texted to explain, as if any explanation would matter. It didn't stop there. David didn't go out of his way to gossip, but he didn't exactly keep it locked up either. His mother, bless her judgmental soul, called me the next morning. She didn't even yell, she just asked me how I could do that to her son after everything. I sat on the kitchen floor, back against the dishwasher, while she told me I'd never be welcome in her house again. She'd crocheted a blanket for me every Christmas since we got engaged. Now she wanted them all back. I wish that was a joke. My own parents didn't even take my side. I thought maybe they'd be neutral at least. They'd always loved David, probably more than me if I'm being honest. When I told my mother through heaving sobs that I'd made a mistake, that I was drowning in regret, she just said, "Some mistakes don't get forgiven, sweetheart." What did you think would happen? Good question. What did I think would happen? That David would scream, throw a vase, storm out for a week, and then come back to our marriage bed like nothing had happened? That we'd hold each other at night and promise to do better? I think in some twisted way, I believed my tears would fix what my body broke. After word got out, the rest of my life started to shrivel like fruit left in the sun. Our friends took sides, spoiler, most took his. Apparently I was the one who smiled too wide at other men, who drank too much at parties, who was flirty. Funny how people rewrite your whole personality when they get a villain to point at. I went to brunch with Liza, the same Liza who dragged Matt along that fateful night, and even she looked at me like I was diseased. She called what I did unforgivable. I wanted to scream that it was her friend too, that she brought him, that she'd laugh when we flirted. But I didn't. What would be the point? The damage was done. I tried to talk to Matt exactly once. He texted me 3 weeks after everything blew up, some half-assed, "Hey, you okay?" like he wasn't the other half of this grenade. I ignored him at first, then gave in and called him one night when the house was so quiet it made me want to claw at the walls. He answered on the third ring, drunk as hell, told me he'd never meant to ruin my life. I asked him why he even came that night. He laughed, actually laughed, and said, "You always wanted me to." Maybe he was right. I hung up on him and blocked his number. The satisfying kind of closure you only get when you know you're never crawling back to that particular sin again. David served me papers in early spring. I sat at our dining table, the same one where I'd sobbed my confession, and signed them with a hand that wouldn't stop shaking. He didn't look at me while I did it. Just stared at the wall behind my head, jaw tight, like he'd die if he caught my eyes. I almost wish he'd screamed again. Silence is worse. Silence makes you feel in all the ways he must hate you. By the time I moved out, our neighbors knew. David's mom told her bridge club, who told their husbands, who told their wives, who told the entire damn block. The same woman who used to bring me cookies when I was sick now crosses the street when she sees me walking my dog. Not that I live there anymore, but sometimes I pass by, just to torture myself. The curtains are different now. There's a new car in the driveway. He's moving on the way he should. I'm the only ghost that keeps haunting the past. And through all of it, the only thing I keep wondering is, if I just kept my mouth shut, would any of this be different? Would my marriage still be alive if my secret had died in that hotel room? Maybe, maybe not. But at least I wouldn't have set fire to every other part of my life trying to clean my soul with the truth no one wanted to hear. If you ask my therapist, the one I started seeing too late, after the papers were signed and my parents stopped returning my calls, she'd tell you confession is good for the soul. That secrets rot you from the inside. That truth is a disinfectant. I'd like to tell her she's full of shit. I never planned on seeing a therapist. I used to think people who paid strangers to listen to their problems were weak, like their friends and family weren't enough. Funny how quickly you run out of friends when you become that woman. Suddenly the only one left to talk to is someone who charges by the hour and nods like they're watching a tragic play they've seen 100 times before. I remember my first session. The waiting room smelled like old paper and stale coffee. The couch was too soft, like it wanted to swallow me whole. I sat there and told her everything: the bar, the hotel, the confession, the fallout. She didn't flinch. Just scribbled notes and asked me how it made me feel. How did it make me feel? Like I wanted to climb out of my own skin and hide under the floorboards. Like I wanted to grab David's shoulders, shake him until he understood I didn't mean to break him. That it was just a stupid, drunken mistake. That I'm not a bad person, just a person who did a bad thing. The problem is, once you're the villain, it doesn't matter how soft your voice is when you tell your side. Nobody cares that you cried yourself to sleep for months, that you stopped eating, that you can't look at yourself in the mirror without wanting to slap your own face. You're the cheater. The liar. The destroyer of homes. My parents still answer my texts sometimes, short, polite replies that read like they're talking to a distant cousin they barely remember. My dad's birthday came and went. He didn't invite me. Mom says he's still hurt. Give him time. But how much time do you give someone to forgive the thing they raised you to know was unforgivable? I think about David every day. Not in the pathetic, obsessive way you might expect. I don't stalk his Instagram, don't check if he's dating someone new. Okay, maybe once. Or twice. He's not, or if he is, he's smarter than I was. I think about him when I make coffee in the morning and catch myself reaching for his mug. When I watch stupid sitcoms we used to quote at each other until we cried laughing. When I wake up at 2 a.m. and realize there's no one beside me to pull me closer and mumble that I steal the blankets. Some nights I replay that moment at the kitchen table. The look on his face when he realized what I'd done. I wonder if it would have been easier for him if I'd lied forever. Wouldn't ignorance have been kinder than truth? If I'd swallowed my guilt and let it kill me slowly from the inside, at least he'd still have his peace. He'd still believe he was enough for me because he was. He always was. I was the one who wasn't enough for myself. After the divorce, I stayed in the city for a while. Rented a shoebox apartment with creaky floors and a view of a brick wall. Every corner of that place reeked of penance, cheap wine, microwave dinners, silence so loud I could hear my own heartbeat mocking me. I thought maybe if I suffered enough, the universe would balance the scale. That if I was miserable, maybe David wouldn't be. I called him once. Blocked number. Dumb idea. He answered anyway. I think he knew it was me. I didn't even get 2 words out before he hung up. That was the last time I heard his voice. People love to ask if I regret it. As if regret is some switch you flip off and on. Of course I regret sleeping with Matt. But what keeps me up at night isn't the sex, it's the confession. It's knowing that my honesty didn't come from some noble place, but from my own selfish need to feel clean again. I dumped my guilt on David like it was his job to mop up the blood from my self-inflicted wound. The therapist says I'm processing. She says I need to forgive myself. I want to laugh in her face every time she says that. Forgive myself for what, telling the truth? Or being too cowardly to keep my mouth shut? I think about alternate timelines sometimes. Versions of me that stumble drunk into that bar bathroom and splash cold water on my face instead of giggling into Matt's neck. Versions that said, no, I should go home to my husband. Versions that deleted Matt's number years ago. But the version I think about the most is the one that came home, stood in the kitchen, saw David sleeping on the couch with my glass of water waiting for me, and kept my damn mouth shut. Kissed him on the forehead, crawled into bed beside him, and carried that secret to my grave. Maybe that makes me rotten. Maybe I deserve this empty apartment, this silence, this self-hate. Maybe some truths aren't disinfectant. Maybe they're poison. I know what you're thinking. You're probably screaming at your screen that I deserve to lose him. You're right. I did. I do. But tell me you've never done something so stupid it made your stomach flip every time you remembered it. Tell me you'd really have been brave enough to swallow it whole forever. Tell me you'd choose the lie, or would you pick the truth, just like I did, and pray for mercy that never comes? It's funny, isn't it? We grow up learning that the truth is noble. That honesty makes you good, or at least better than the people who lie their way through life. Fairy tales never show you what happens after the brave princess tells her secret. They just end with some neat moral and a fade to black. They don't show you the part where she's left alone in an empty castle she used to call home. I wish someone had taught me that truth doesn't save you. It just sets fire to everything you thought was safe. After David left, the house became a museum of our almost life. I stayed there for a few weeks longer than I should have, dragging my feet because part of me thought he'd come back. I'd stand in the doorway to our bedroom, his bedroom, after he moved me to the guest room, and imagine him lying there, headphones on, humming under his breath. It's pathetic, the little things you cling to. The half-empty shampoo bottle that still smelled like him. The pair of socks he left balled up under the bed. The stupid mug with a chip on the handle that he refused to throw out. Every bit of it was a knife I kept twisting into myself. Maybe I thought if I bled enough guilt, I'd earn my forgiveness. Spoiler, that's not how it works. The day I left for good, I packed my car with 3 suitcases and a box of books. That's all I took. I didn't want anything else. Not the wedding china collecting dust in the cabinet. Not the photo albums we never finished. Not the pillow he hated because it gave him neck pain but I kept on the bed because it smelled like me. I left my key on the kitchen counter. Stood in the doorway for too long, trying to memorize the sound of the creaky floorboard near the fridge, the hum of the old refrigerator. The silence felt thicker than ever. If ghosts are real, I know I left part of myself in those walls. The worst part. I moved into my sister's basement for a month after that. She didn't know the full story at first, just that David and I were done. She tried to get it out of me one night over cheap wine and frozen pizza. I cracked by the second glass. Told her everything. The bar. The hotel. The confession. She didn't yell. Didn't call me names. She just looked at me with this soft, sad pity I hated more than any anger. She asked, "Why did you tell him?" I didn't have a good answer then. I still don't. All I could say was because I couldn't stand lying to him. She shook her head, took my glass away, and told me, "Sometimes you don't get to unburden yourself if it buries someone else instead." I think that was the first time it really landed that my truth was never about David's right to know. It was about my need to confess. To feel clean. I didn't free him. I just set the cage on fire while he was still inside. After the basement, I found my tiny apartment. It's on the top floor of a building that smells like wet carpet and old takeout. My neighbor smokes weed every night and plays video games with the volume all the way up. At least it drowns out my own thoughts. I changed jobs too, couldn't stand the pitying looks at my old office. Everyone knew. Of course they did. Small city, big mouths. HR gave me a polite out. Maybe you'd like a fresh start elsewhere. Translation, your scandal is making the break room uncomfortable. So now I work at a faceless corporation that doesn't care who I am or what I did, so long as I meet deadlines and don't cry at my desk. Some days I wonder what David tells people now. Does he say I was his ex-wife or just the woman who betrayed me? Does he say my name or does it taste too bitter on his tongue? Is he sitting somewhere right now telling the story of the night I sat him down at our kitchen table and tore his world apart because I thought I was noble enough to deserve absolution? My therapist says I need to rebuild my narrative. That's her phrase, she loves it. Says I have to find meaning in the ashes. I told her once that the only meaning I found is that I should have kept my mouth shut. She didn't love that answer. Scribbled something down, probably a note that I'm still resistant to growth. Maybe she's right. Maybe I am. Or maybe I'm just tired of pretending the truth is worth all this. I want to believe in second chances, but it's hard when your whole life is exhibit A for why there are none. Sometimes late at night, I picture David happy. It's the only thing that keeps me from turning all these regrets into an apology text I know I'll never send. I imagine him waking up next to someone who didn't break him. Someone whose truth didn't ruin his. Someone who never sat him down at a table to get him with words she called honesty. If he's happy, then maybe my confession did one thing right, it cut him loose from me. From my mistakes. From the woman who couldn't keep her vows or her secrets. If there's a moral here, and God knows we love a moral, it's this: the truth doesn't always heal. Sometimes it just takes the knife you used on yourself and sticks it in someone else's chest instead. And once you've done that, there's no pulling it out without leaving scars that never close. They don't tell you what to do with the leftover pieces. The ones that don't fit into your new life, or the old one either. The ones that don't burn no matter how many times you try to toss them into the fire. I collect them in small ways. A photo I keep tucked in the back of a drawer, the two of us at the lake, David holding me up on his shoulders like we were kids. A scarf he gave me that I never wear but can't throw out. The mug I stole from the house when I left, the one with a chip on the handle. I drink my coffee out of it every morning like I'm punishing myself on purpose. Maybe I am. I think about the word confession a lot now. It sounds so righteous, doesn't it? Confession. Like you're cleansing your soul with soap and boiling water. Like you're stepping into a church and leaving clean. But real life isn't a church. There's no priest to bless you back to pure. There's just the person you confess to and they don't get to wash you clean. They get dirty instead. If you're lucky, they forgive you and shoulder the mess with you. If you're me, they pack up your truth in a box marked everything you killed and hand it back to you on the front porch, along with divorce papers and a look that says you did this. I wish I could say I've learned to love myself again. That's what all the self-help books say, right? Forgive yourself. Learn. Heal. I don't know how to do that. Maybe I don't deserve to. Some nights I lie awake on my lumpy mattress and rehearse different versions of that night. The one where I said no. The one where I drank water instead of gin. The one where I kissed David instead of Matt. The one where I lied. People always say secrets destroy marriages. But no one tells you that the truth can do the same thing faster, sharper, more final. A secret would have rotted me from the inside. Maybe it would have made me more attentive, more grateful, more terrified to ever mess up again. Maybe every time David held me, I'd feel a stab of guilt instead of the ice-cold nothing I feel now. But he'd still be here. The life would still be ours. If you think that makes me selfish, congratulations, you're paying attention. I am selfish. I want what I destroyed back. I want my old life, my old husband, my old name spoken without a hiss behind it. I want my mother to invite me home for Christmas without my father pretending he's busy in the garage. I want my sister to stop looking at me like I'm a cautionary tale she tells her friends about when they're drunk and oversharing. Do I want David back? I don't know. Not really, not him as he is now, not the version who can't stand the sight of me. I want the us that existed before I opened my mouth. The version of him who made me tea when I was sick and rubbed my back until I fell asleep. The version of me who believed I was a good wife. I read somewhere that the worst thing a person can do is break their own heart. I used to think that was nonsense. How could you hurt yourself more than someone else could? But I get it now. I broke my own heart the second I decided my guilt was more important than his peace. Maybe one day I'll meet someone else. That's what everyone says, right? That I'm still young, that life goes on, that I'll love again. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll even tell them this story, though God knows when. Maybe I'll lie about it, call it my starter marriage, or things just didn't work out. Maybe I'll keep this ugly truth buried so deep it'll die with me this time. Maybe that's growth. Or maybe it's just the wisdom of someone who's learned that not every sin needs a spotlight. If I could stand in that kitchen again with David's sleepy face waiting for my confession, I'd swallow every word. I'd hug him so tight he'd wonder why I was crying. I'd bury my secret in the back of my throat and learn to live with it like a tumor I deserved. I'd protect him from the thing I did, instead of making it his burden too. If you came here for redemption, I'm sorry to disappoint you. There's no neat bow on this story. No second chance, no forgiveness, no quiet dinner where he takes my hand and says, we can start over. The only moral here is this: the truth doesn't always set you free. Sometimes it just locks you in a different cage, one where you're alone with the echo of your own honesty, repeating back at you like a prayer you should have kept silent. So if you're waiting for me to say I'm glad I told him, don't hold your breath. I'm not glad. I wish I'd lied. I wish I'd stitched my mouth shut and carried my secret to the grave. Because some truths aren't worth the rubble they leave behind. And if there's anything left of me that still believes in love, I'd protect it better next time. I'd protect him better next time. If there ever is one.